All right. Good evening, everyone. Let's give it a minute or two here, let the room populate. As always, be sure to give StreamYard your credentials so that I know who you are when you weigh in with a comment. If you're coming at me through the Motorcycle Jazz Facebook page or the Motorcycle Jazz YouTube page, I may not see your name anyway. You kind of, in order for me to see who you are, you have to be coming through the Tour of Idaho group, and you have to give StreamYard your credentials. And if you do all that, I'll know who you are when you ask a question. If there's any doubt, just put your name in with your question, and that way I'll know who you are. May have a guest here tonight. I'm waiting for someone to log in perhaps and join us in a few minutes. And next week, we're going to have a really special guest. Next week's show is going to be a lot of fun. Hello, Nick. Good to see you. Jeff, good to see you. See you got those credentials back up. Let's see. Scott Murray, hello, good evening. All right, well, we got a bunch of people coming in here, so let's just get to it. Brian, how you doing? I want to talk about several things tonight. I promised everybody I'm going to take you through D4 to D7. I promised we'd talk a little bit of navigation. But the first thing that I want to do tonight is talk a little bit about tire strategy this year, because as I told you before, you're not going to be able to get tires at Les Schwab and Salmon anymore. And in case I didn't make it clear enough last week, I don't want anybody bothering Josh. That is off the table now. So Les Schwab and Salmon is no longer a place, hello, Andrew, where we can get tires. And Thomas, good evening to you too. There is another motorcycle shop there, and we'll try to work with them. But I've got something I think even better worked out for you. We're going to go through that tonight. So, I want to talk about tire strategy a little bit right off the gate. This is what I would do if it were me. If what I have said and what everybody else has said hasn't convinced you yet, for the Tour of Idaho, the trick are reasonably stiff tires. And the Golden Tire GT333, a lot of people like that. There are other tires out there that'll work, but that's a popular tire. And then the 216 AA fatty front, that's a combination that's done the Tour a whole bunch of times. I think they're wonderful tires, but any reasonably stiff desert racing tire that's got some grip will do it. And then the Bridgestone ultra heavy duty tubes, put some slime in them and you won't have any trouble. If you show up with tubeless or moose or something like that and it breaks in the middle of nowhere, you're just going to be knackered. And some of the places along the way that I'm going to be sending you to, you're out of luck probably dealing with them too. So if you ignore all the advice you've gotten here, which you're free to do, I mean, it's your Tour of Idaho. You do it the way you see fit. But if you show up with a tubeless, I can almost guarantee you're going to have trouble because everybody has. And so far, Moose don't have a great record on the Tour of Idaho. Some guys have made it, but almost all of them have said, I was scared at the end. Hello, Sean. Hello, Jim. And hello, Brett. So this is what I would do if I were riding the Tour this year, and you can take this any way that you want, but this is the strategy that I would employ, and I believe that I'm giving you a sound one. The first day of the Tour of Idaho shreds tires. It's a lot of sharp rocks, and sometimes I put on a brand new tire. I ride day one from the border up to my house, and by the time I get there, that tire is knackered. It looks like it's been on for a month. I don't know what it is about day one. There's a lot of sharp rocks. You're spending a lot of the day in rocky terrain, but day one just eats tires. So if it were me, I would show up here with whatever I've been riding on my bike, as long as it was reasonably good. It's got to get you another 200 miles. I would run what I had on the bike for day one. It'll get you to Pocatello. I would call the guys at Power Sports, and I would have reserved a set of tires that you're going to go down the morning of day two. That's your half day in Pocatello. Those guys will get you in and out in the morning in plenty of time. So I would go down there and have a fresh set of tires put on at PPS. Then I would ride all the way to Ketchum, Idaho. And there's a new shop in Haley. It's a shop that was bought by the Carl Malone Motorsports Group. And those guys are interested in working with us. I did not have a chance to talk with them today, but I'm going to talk to them tomorrow. Jeff Jensen's already made the introduction, and I think we're going to be able to do a deal with those guys. And I'm confident enough that this is going to work that I've shortened that's day 4 this, or is that right? Day 1, 2, it's day 5 this year. I've shortened that day up enough that you'll have plenty of time to go down to Haley and get yourself a fresh set of tires spooned on. Now, it's day 5, but that's better than nothing. It's not as deep into the tour as I would like, but it's also on a very short day. And if you get to Salmon and you want another tire, you can deal with the motorcycle shop there. The problem is they're very expensive, and they'll special order. They have very, very little in stock. They'll special order it for you, but you're going to have to pay through the nose for it. So you can get tires this year at PPS. You can get tires this year in Arco. And you'll have 2 opportunities to do that because you'll be going close to Arco twice. You'll be going right through it on day 3 and reasonably close to it on day 4 and the beginning of day 5. This shop down in Haley. And then once you get to Salmon, you can deal with Wildside Power Sports there. Now, as always, the normal caveats apply. And this was a little bit of a problem with the Les Schwab and Salmon. They're not open on Sunday. None of these places are open on Sunday. And calling these guys up and saying, I'll give you $150 to put on my tires on Sunday, I don't want anybody doing that. They have other things to do on Sunday. A lot of these people go to church. They spend their time with their family. And there's something a little unseemly about trying to bribe somebody to come in on a day that they feel is important to spend with their family. And I don't want anybody doing that. That was a little bit of a problem with Josh. And as I mentioned last week, we've had several people come to do the tour of Idaho that thought that if they threw enough money at any problem, they could get what they want. Well, if I pay somebody $250, surely they don't mind getting up at, 4 a.m. and dealing with him. Well, yes, they do. They might take your money because they need it, but no one wants that. Any emergency that you have is your emergency. It's not the emergency of the rest of the world. And to the degree that many people, myself included, are willing to help you out in the middle of the night, I have to do that. I'm sort of committed to it. You should not really unburden our vendors along the way with stuff like that. It's your responsibility to plan your trip, to be where you need to be at a time when they're open and they're able to help you. And if you make arrangements, they're all generally willing to help you out. So you find out what their business hours are, you make an appointment, make sure they have what you want, everything's good to go. Calling a shop and saying, can you order up my favorite motor oil or my favorite tires, that doesn't violate our no support rule. As long as you're buying it from a shop, that's fine. One thing you can't do is you can't drop ship something to them. It has to be something that they can get. So, again, that would be my tire strategy. I'd put on a fresh set in Pocatello. I have reason to believe that you might need a new set by the time you get to Ketchum this year. And it's 15 miles south of Ketchum is where this shop is. It's just a drone down some slab. Pretty nice. You'll enjoy it. And those guys will hook you up. And then when you get to Salmon, you can take a look, and maybe you want another set of tires in Salmon. I think you can get through the rest of the tour. I think the days that are worst on tires are the first half of the tour. And you will be nearly through the first half of the tour by the time you get to Salmon. There is some stuff ahead, but the real gnarly days are the early days on tires. All right, let's see who else has come in. I see, Ed Spooner is in the room. Hello, Ed. Who else? Brent, good to see you. Jim Spooner, Sean Smith, always a pleasure, buddy. Jeff Jensen, and Andrew Hickson. Good to see all of you. So I have a guest that I want to bring in tonight, and she's here right now. We're going to talk about Smoky Bar Store here in just a few minutes. And I have my good friend, Kaylin Dennis, who's agreed to join us for a few minutes tonight. How you doing, Kaylin?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Hey, my shirt's in my closet. Do you have any of those Let's Go Brandon shirts around?
I don't. I took them all up to the store.
Kaylin has got the coolest sense of humor in the planet. I think it was you and your dad that went in on those shirts. Is that right?
Yeah.
So I saw this shirt that she had up, and it's Let's Go Brandon, as in branding cattle and stuff. And that's another one of these things, kind of like this shirt, that triggers people everywhere I go. So it pisses off all the people I really like pissing off. How the heck you doing, Kaylin?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been an interesting spring so far.
Tell us how.
Well, I was waiting to get into the store till they opened the road May 1st, and we've had snowstorms every other day and making the summit an interesting pass. But it's been good so far.
I was talking to our mutual friend Jeff Jensen today. He called, these rich guys, they jet off to Hawaii and stuff like that. Then they come back and, they kind of call their friends and stuff just to make them feel like they're still in touch with the common man. And I talked to Jeff today and I said, well, we need to go over and pay Kaylin a visit. I'll call you guys up and you can just drive over Dollarhide and meet me there, and we'll have some beers and talk. And they go, nobody's driving over Dollarhide anytime soon.
Oh, no. Definitely don't do Dollarhide yet. There's still like 64 inches of snow up there.
Yeah, it's, I tell you what, this is what Idaho is supposed to be like. There wasn't a ton of snow in the winter, but, the first 20 years I lived here, there was snow in front of my barn on the north side of my barn this time of year, very commonly and occasionally in June. It's just been like the last 5 or 6 years that we got this trend where all of a sudden things warmed up early. And, I used to tell people, if you try to do the tour of Idaho in the middle of July, you are out of your freaking mind. You're not getting through. And then the last few years, the trails weren't cut, but they were definitely free of snow. But this year it sounds like we're back to a more traditional Idaho spring anyway.
There was a couple that decided they were going to drive over to catch them for lunch last Sunday and stayed on the summit for 4 days.
Wow.
Is stranded.
And on Dollarhide?
Yeah, on this side of Dollarhide. So they didn't even make it to the summit.
And that's the worst side to be stuck on, too, because I think the road is a little steeper on your side. I think the drop-offs are bigger on the other side, but I think it's actually steeper on your side.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be gnarly. Were they up there just because nobody knew where they were, or were they up there just because everybody said if they're dumb enough to do that, we're not going to get them?
They had no idea where they were, and nobody knew they were up there until they went around the road closed sign, and they started, after they ran out their gas and ate all their snacks and everything, decided to start walking, and they ran into the road grader, the road boss, and he picked them up.
Darwinism. I'm telling you what, it works.
Yeah, I know.
So tell us what's new at your place this year. Anything? When we talked the last time a few days ago, you said that you had some construction projects going on. Anything new and exciting?
Oh boy, today I was redoing the inside of the big cabin that the tour of Idaho is staying in. I decided to change a few things up and might have bit off a little bit more than I could chew because I'm a one-man band.
That's true.
So I had to come get my my business partner's just about ready to graduate second grade, so you had to come get her off the school bus. Come say hi if you want. And so I left it. There's Tessa.
How you doing?
Good.
I'm bringing up my kids to introduce you to Tara sometime really soon.
Okay.
I think you'll particularly get along with my son, who's your age.
Yeah. You did that last year, I think.
Tessa sets up a slack line in between the pine trees out across the Paradise Creek, and the kids have a good time on that. You'll show them that, won't you?
And then I'm gonna hide a gymnastics bar down there again.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Gymnastics, slacklining is the best thing in the world for your balance, and gymnastics are good. That's a really good thing to be in. Good for you.
She just graduated to the advanced level in her gymnastics class. We're pretty proud of her.
Yes. Where do you go to school?
That's kind of, huh?
Where do you go to school?
Here in Fairfield.
Do you like it?
And yes, except for one class,
Well, tell us about your gymnastics.
which is a baby, and he gets whatever he wants when he cries.
Oh, I see.
So
His name's
That's awesome. See, you guys out there, I keep telling you, I want to get out of this because I have kids like this too. There's nothing more awesome than having kids. I love riding motorcycles, but kids are better.
Oh yeah. Yep, I've adopted some of my tour of Idaho kids. They keep coming back and visiting us, and it's pretty awesome.
That's cool. That's cool.
They're not kids, but
Well, they act like it sometimes.
Well,
I
yeah,
see just and Laura are kids.
Sometimes the tour of Idaho is like dealing with 7th grade girls for a full summer. It is. There's some drama sometimes. Motorcycling's an interesting sport. It's a lot like climbing. It's a lot like playing guitar. For some reason, I've always picked these sports that are full of male prima donnas, and there's something about motorcycle guys. The better they ride, it's like the more they believe that they walk on water. And it's the same with guitar players. I've worked with guitar players that were, pretty good, but they thought they were awesome. And then I work with Bruce Springsteen. He's like the nicest guy in the world. He's the most unassuming dude in the world. But you get tons of attitude from these guys that have like 1/1000th of his ability. It's insane. Jimmy is another example of that in motorcycles. Jimmy Lewis is the nicest guy on the planet. And he rides better than anybody. But you'd never know it from talking to the guy because he's self-effacing. He doesn't put up with anybody's shit, which I like, but he's pretty self-effacing. And then there's Kalen Dennis, who can do everything in the West, can brand cattle, can rope them, can build a store and run a 40-year family business all by herself. And you guys get to go see her this year, and you better treat her right when you get there.
I was just going to say that, Martin. Like, you might have caught some flack, but I don't get 1 ounce. Not even. Nobody flips me any crap.
Good for you. I wouldn't do it. I'm scared.
Except for Jeffy, maybe.
Yeah, well, again, it's these rich guys, man. You just live in a different stratosphere from us.
He's our special guy.
He's very special. I agree with that. We're sorry, JJ. We're flipping you some shit. I'm sorry.
You think I wouldn't?
For those of you who don't know, he's a very good friend of both Kalen's and myself, and we're both old school. So the more shit comes your way, the higher our esteem actually is for you. Not a lot of people get that. All right, so we're getting everybody to you early this year, as you probably heard. We shortened up the day where they're coming to you, which I think is day 5 this year. It's considerably shorter than it's been in the past. So these guys are going to go to Haley, probably a lot of them, get tires, oil changes, stuff like that. But you should see teams between 3 and 6, I would imagine, this year.
Okay.
So they're being nice and early, and you make sure you get their asses out the door. I don't care how much they protest. They need to be on that trail the next morning at 5:30 to 6, or else, because Chalice is always a big day. They have no idea what's coming the day after Chalice. The day after Chalice is even worse, so they got to get going quick.
All right.
Anything else?
No, I'm thankful for everybody that's booked so far, and I'm super thankful and grateful for the Tour of Idaho. Every year we look forward to it and making some lifelong friends in the meantime. Thank you, guys.
Kalen, thanks a lot for taking a few minutes to join us. Tell that beautiful little girl of yours that we all said hello, and JJ and I'll be up to see you soon, okay?
All right, sounds good.
Take care. Bye-bye.
See ya.
All right, so there you go. Kalen Dennis, proprietor of Smoky Bar Store. One of the reasons, frankly, I've stayed in this thing as long as I have. Meeting people like Kalen and Josh and Donna and the girls at North Fork, the folks along the way have just kept me going year after year. They're such awesome people that you get to meet. And that's why we make such a big deal out of the fact that this is more than just a motorcycle ride. It's more than even just the navigation and the wilderness survival and all that stuff. It is the people that you meet along the way. I've had tour rider after tour rider tell me that they showed up at Pocatello Power Sports with something that they broke on day one, and the guys there, the shop didn't have the part. Somebody would go home, take a part off their own bike, bring it back in, and hand it to you and say, here you go. It's very unusual in this day and age to find people that care, but they care deeply about what you guys are doing, which is why it angers me so much when you do anything to show discourtesy to people along the way. These people think that what you are doing is incredibly cool, and they're going to show you all the respect that they can possibly muster. You need to make sure that you're treating them right. And that doesn't mean if you stay up at 4 o'clock in the morning, I'll give you $250. It means get your ass in there when it's supposed to be. And be nice to people. Understand when they are making an exception to try to help you out. those are the kind of things you need to do. You ought to be tipping the hell out of them anyway, not because you kept them up at 4 in the morning or something ridiculous like that. Jeffrey Brandier, hello. Who else is here new? I think that's it. So anyway, we talked about tire strategy a little bit. Let's get into day 3 through day 7 now. What I want to do today is try to take you from Mysteryville, which is where we left off last week, all the way to Salmon. So that's day 4, day 5, day 6, and day 7. Let's go through that right now. We're going to be able to get through it in the time that we have because a lot of it's mystery route, and you're going to find out about it when you get here. Before that, I want to make a plug for next week's show. Next week, I have a really special guest. It's a fellow who's been on here several times before. He's a great friend of mine. He's one of my favorite people. And again, frankly, one of the reasons that I've stayed involved in this as long as I have. And I'll put up a little promo a little later on in the week to let everybody know what it is and what it's all about. But you're going to want to make sure that you grab everybody and be here next week because when this guy's on, he's one of my favorite guests because he's funny as all get out. We always have a great time. And you will learn a lot listening to this guy. He's worthy of an hour or so of your life. So let's get into day 3, which is where we are going to start this week. Last week we left off the end of day 2, and it ends in Mysteryville. I'm not going to tell you where it's at. Hello, Drew. I also put up on the Facebook page this week the contact information for the woman that you need to talk to about where you're going to stay the night of D3. As I said, don't ask her where she is or anything, and just call her. She'll take your credit card information. You're good to go. I shared the calendar with her, and she should be able to accommodate everybody. Now, we have some new teams. I've been talking to some people that have not registered yet, so we have a few new teams, and there may be a couple of days when it may be tight. So if you have a 3-person team, you might all be staying in the same room. But right now, the way the calendar stands, this individual can accommodate everybody in the place that they have. There's gas. There's everything. There's even some tools and stuff that you can get into there. So there's gas, food, accommodations. You're going to love it. And it's a nice place, too. You're going to like it when you're there. But it is in the middle of nowhere. So let's see. Facebook user room reservation done from our end went smoothly. Good for you. So the next morning, day 4, you're going to get up. And most of day 4 is mystery route. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, though. It's some of the best trails I have ever ridden in my life. And when I first started the tour of Idaho, these were the trails I imagined putting on it when I first started doing it years and years ago. And I finally learned enough about the area, was able to ride the area enough last summer to figure out a way to stitch all this stuff together in a way that makes sense. Again, frustration that I have constantly is people that they're not members of our group, but every once in a while I'll get out and I'll be reading about what we do in the old interwebs. And of course you see all this stuff. Well, why did they put this on there? It's because these guys are all sissies and can't ride it, or this guy doesn't know anything about this, or yada, yada, yada. It's all the normal stuff that I see. Hello, David. It's got to make sense. There are a lot of cool trails everywhere, but we have, you got to be able to carry enough gas to get you from one place to the other. It makes no sense to take you 2 mountain ranges over to hit a single track trail. So everything has to make sense. We want to sort of balance transfer sections with single track, and we got to fit it into a certain number of days. I am one guy. I'm not an entire army. So it takes me a while to personally go out and ride all this stuff and make sure that I think that it makes sense and it kind of fits in with everything else. We're trying not to make one day impossibly hard and one day really easy, except to the degree of giving you a couple of half days off this year. Those are designed to be short. And then one day we're going to make kind of short, the day you go from Mackey to Smoky Bar Store. But this new day 4 is a bunch of mystery route, and all I'm going to tell you about it right now is these trails are going to burn your eyes out, and it starts right from the get-go. A half hour into it, you're going to be going, wow, I can't believe that I can ride my motorcycle. Probably the best trail I've ever ridden a motorcycle on is on this day. There's a trail that just, it not only is the physical quality of the trail itself awesome, it's just one of these kind of trails that's perfect. The trail tread is really good. It was put in an area where It doesn't get eroded very well. The scenery's spectacular. You could rail the corners. It's a wonderful trail. There's several bonus sections. There's also a challenge section on this day. The challenge section, should you decide to do it, I think you'll find to be one of the more challenging ones. And it's got some, oh boy, moments on it too. There's some side hilling on this thing that'll get your attention. And I'm not going to reveal any more about it other than that, but should you decide to do it, I'm going to give you several options. There's a bonus section that you can get to from the challenge section, and there's 4 bonus sections on this day. The first one's short. It's an out and back, and probably everybody will want to do it. The second one is really long, and probably not a lot of people will want to do it. You'd really need a point pretty badly in order to do this one, because it's about a 40-mile long bonus section. Having said that, it's one of the coolest trails in the world. I mean, it's an awesome trail, but it's just in the middle of nowhere. When I rode it really late last fall, I remember thinking, God, this is awesome, but nobody's going to want to do this because it's just too far out of the way. But it's available if you want a point. The third bonus section, let's see, I'm pretty sure there's 4 in that day. Let me see what we got here. I'm actually only seeing 3. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. So I guess there's only 3 on that day. The third bonus section I'm going to be able to tell you about. It's a trail that we had last year, and it was a bonus section last year as well. Most of you will probably want to do that. So day 4, excuse me, what I can tell you right now is that it's about 200 miles if you don't do the long bonus section. If you do the long bonus section, it's going to end up being about 240 miles probably. But if you just do the nominal route, it's somewhere around 190 to maybe 205 miles, depending on exactly what you do. And the map that's already put up shows that basically the mystery route comes back in to the nominal tour route up there by Pass Creek Road. So you're going to ride those quad trails and stuff that you did last year up around Pass Creek. And there is a single track trail up there. And let me see if I got this. Yeah, it's the Warren Mountain Loop that was on last year. What is that called? There's a lake in there somewhere, and the trail's named after the lake. Yeah, Bear Creek, the Bear Creek Trail. So Warren Mountain, Bear Creek, in the direction we ride it, you're riding it downhill. It's a pretty casual trail, and it's a really easy way to get a bonus point if you want. As I have been doing for all other days, if you're a returning team or if you've ridden much of this route before, some of the bonus sections are not bonuses, they're mandatory, and sometimes that also depends upon team size a little bit. Again, this year, on almost every day, if you have ridden some of those trails before, you're going to have to ride some bonus sections. Some of the bonus sections are not bonus sections. They are mandatory for you. And that's to level the playing field a little bit between people that have done some extensive pre-riding or are familiar with the trails and people that have no idea what they're getting into. That's 2 completely different things. And I want to try to level that out the same way I do by 1, 2, and 3 person teams. They have different routes in different places. Someone asked a great question the other day. Hey, Mike Neild, I see that you're in here. Mike, I don't know if we have your team in the calendar yet, and I think we were still waiting on a name. So if you figured out a name, if I'm right about that, you figured out a name, PM me what the name is so I can put you on the calendar next week. Someone asked me, well, what exactly counts for pre-riding? What if I've ridden like one trail a few years ago in that area before I even knew about the tour, but I haven't ridden anything else? We'll talk about that. I'm not that concerned about things like that. You know, a lot of people have ridden some of that stuff around Ketchum before. If you just, if it was years ago and you didn't ride at all, I don't care. I probably won't hold you to that. But if you rode a lot of the route last year, if you were a tour team last year and you're returning, it's going to count most days. You're going to have to ride some of the bonus sections. Certainly, even if you're new to the tour, but you ride some of these trails all the time, you're going to have to ride the bonus sections on those days. There's some negotiation that will work out there. So if you have any questions about it, just ask, and I'll tell you what I think you ought to do. So anyway, Day 4 ends in Mackey, and I put up the hotel motel information there. There's 3 places to stay close to Mackey. One of them, the White Pines, a little south of town, but it's a nice little place. You can get a really good meal there. It's pretty cool. It's another kind of place, though, that I would recommend you book your rooms early, because there's all kinds of events that happen in Mackey throughout the course of the summer that fill up the town pretty fast. So you're going to want to make sure that you book. I recommend everywhere early, but Mackey's another one of these kind of places, especially you want to make sure that you book early. So onwards, let's talk about the next day here. Let me get this up. All right, so now we're talking Mackey to Smoky Bar Store. The route is the same as it was last year. There are no changes in the route from Mackey all the way to Smoky Bar Store. The only difference is it's shorter, because last year you went from Arco to Smoky Bar Store. This year it's Mackey. That knocks about 40 or 50 miles off, so it's a much shorter day. That I talked a lot with the Ketchup guys, especially Jeff Jensen, and we had actually constructed a more elaborate route out of Ketchum to give you a little bit more single-track miles to Smoky Bar Store. We decided to abandon that plan because for 2 reasons. One is we really want to get you to Smoky Bar Store a little early, and 2, to allow you plenty of time to go down to the store in Haley, get a set of tires, get an oil change, get your bike worked on, do things like that. I really want to see you get in to see Kaylin early, because it's one of the big treats of the tour, staying at her place. And also, I don't like having her have to wait till 9 o'clock at night for teams to come rolling in. I'd really like for everybody to be there early in the afternoon, and I think that's going to work this year. And then, frankly, we increased the length of the tour 2 days this year. I don't want to make it 13 killer days. You have to have some relatively easy days in between, or else we start getting to the point to where this year's tour is way different than last year's tour. It's certainly longer, but because some of these days are fairly short, I think the overall level of difficulty is close. So we're trying to make sure that we're fair to people that are coming in this year, that we're not holding them to an impossibly higher standard than anybody else. So you leave Mackey, you roll up the hill there, up Mine Hill, and you roll up over your first, this year it won't be your first 10,000-foot pass, but that pass at the top of Corral Creek, that's a 10,000-footer. It'll be about your third this year, because there's a lot of really high stuff on day 3 and day 4. You roll down Corral Creek, you get into Copper Basin, you roll up to Whitehorse Lookout. There's a mountain back up there. Then you go over that Aspen Burnt Creek Trail, which is that is one of everybody's favorite trails in the entire tour. The scenery's great. It's a wonderful set of trails. It's sawed really early. It's really beautiful. You head up over the road down into Ketchum, and once you get to Ketchum, you have the option to hang a left, go down the road to Haley to this motorcycle shop. Again, we'll work all that out. I'll have information about the shop and a map of how to get there. Ketchum is a good place to eat lunch. It's one of the glory cities of the United States. There's all kinds of stars that you'll see there. Bruce Willis used to own a bar just down the road, and I played music in that bar once. I played at Whiskey Jocks there, and Peter Cetera of Chicago walked by while I was on stage singing a Chicago song, which I thought was pretty cool. It's quite the place. Now, a lot of people that are looking at you hate your guts because you're riding a motorcycle and they don't like any of that stuff, but screw them. It's Ketchum, Idaho. Ernest Hemingway lived there. It's a nice place. While you're rolling out of Ketchum, there's a guy, a real athletic-looking guy in his 60s that's going to flag you down at a crosswalk on your way out Warm Springs Road. And this guy's going to be really friendly, and he's going to tell you all kinds of things about day 3. He's going to say, look, you really should do this challenge section. It's casual. There's no problem to it. Yeah. All that stuff about the boulders in the creek. Don't worry about that stuff. Yeah, just go do it. He's going to tell you the same thing about all the successive days. Yeah, you should really do this. Don't listen to that stuff. That stuff's casual. You guys can do it. And that guy, this extremely sophisticated, a gentleman in his 60s, very athletic-looking man, looks like he runs triathlons and stuff like that, which he does. That guy is my good buddy Jeff Jensen. And what you need to know to completely understand the background of this is that Jeff and I have a running bet. And it's kind of like one of those trading places bet. I think it's something like a Coke Zero or something. But I tell you, this is the way I would do it. Jeff tries to talk you out of that. And whichever way you go, one of us has to buy somebody a beer or a Coke Zero or something like that. So don't fall for this now, I'm telling you what. Jeff always flags people down. He's an awesome dude, Tour of Idaho finisher, super good dude. And he and his buddies are responsible for all these wonderful trails that you're going to ride that look like they're buffed to immaculateness. That's Jeff Jensen and those guys. There are a lot of people that ride motorcycles with saws. There are a lot of people that do trail work, but these guys, they do it right. And they're not asses about it either. A lot of people that ride with saws on their bike, they just look down their nose at everybody else. It's like, you can't possibly saw as much as I do. You know, you post a photo up in a lot of these motorcycle groups with your saw on your bike. There's 30 people that jump on there and talk about, yeah, that's a wuss saw. And, you know, the way you got it mounted, you can't possibly know what you're doing. And it's just all this. I hate it, which is why I'm not a member of any of those groups. These guys don't do any of that. They just work their butts off. And they have a partnership with mountain bikers and hikers up there. Everybody kind of gets along. They all go out. They work together in this stuff. They keep it open. And those trails are immaculate and beautiful. And it's something that I regard very highly and respect greatly. And Jeff and all those guys up there make this stuff work, and good on them for being able to do it. They are absolutely to be credited for their ability to work with all these diverse user groups and to work with the agencies and get a lot of good things done. So all these wonderful trails that you're going to ride that afternoon, these guys are the ones that are responsible for all that stuff, and there's a bunch of them. So that day 5 this year will end at Smoky Bar Store, and I anticipate even with a fresh set of tires, you ought to be there well before 6 o'clock. Now, the next morning, you're going to go, is day 6 now, and you're going to go all the way from Smoky Bar Store to Chalice. Nothing about that route has really changed. I changed a little bit up north of Sawmill Station. Last year, there were some things I did with the 2 and 3 team routes. I switched up a little bit this year just to make it interesting, keep people on their toes. But it's basically, for all intents and purposes, the same route as last year. It's exactly the same route as 3 years ago, I think. So it's a long day, and people look at that, and they look at the mileage and go, well, how hard can it be? And it is one of these kind of days that ends up being an amazingly long day for a lot of people because the average difficulty of the trail starts getting a little bit higher. There's not a ton of stuff. No, Brent, Cinnabar's not on there, buddy. I took it off. Last time I rode that trail, there were some creek crossings down there, and I said, I can't believe that I sent poor Brent Asper down this stuff. That's kind of a gnarlesome trail. Who knows? I heard a rumor that IDPR went in and fixed some of that stuff, but we'll just keep it as it is. Until I go in there and I hear that Cinnabar's been fixed, that's a non-option. It's the stuff that's up north on Squaw Creek, though. There was a quad trail that I used last year, and I took that off again, and you're just going all the way down to Treeler Creek Road if you're on a 3-person team now before you loop back up to the north. You can see it on the maps. So anyway, again, the reason this day takes longer than you think is because there's a lot of trail that's, kind of slow. It's bumpy. Little Boulder Creek is kind of a bumpy trail. Even some of the quad trails are kind of nasty. They're filled with rocks and they're all washed out. So it takes a little longer than you think. There's an alternative section, Germania Creek. Don't ride Germania Creek. Remember, these routes that are on there in purple are routes that you're not supposed to ride unless something else is closed. But there is a bonus route in that area, and it's that Bowery route that goes over the hill. And as I mentioned in the write-up, you would really have to need a point really bad to ride Bowery. That's the last thing that I would do on that day because that'll get your radiator hot. It's not an incredibly difficult trail, but it's just really steep and on a loaded bike, and the sun's just beating down on you. It's got some bear climbing on it with the sun just beating down on you about that time of day, and I wouldn't do that. And it drops you into Germania Creek, and there's still a little bit of gnarl to get back to the road. If it were me, I would just do Grand Prize Gulch, get yourself to Little Boulder, over to Big Boulder, up to Chinese Wall, down French Creek. Get to Sawmill as quick as you can. Most people get to Sawmill, noonish, sometime through there. Go say hi to Ross. They fix killer sandwiches there. It's a really nice place, but don't spend too much time there because you got a big afternoon. It is still a long freaking way to Chalice. So what did I change in the second half of the day this year? Challenge section is a little bit different. Instead of, if you do the challenge section up to Custer this year, instead of just having you go up and ride up and then come back down, there's like, 30 feet of terror in that challenge section. But other than that, it really didn't meet challenge section standards in my view. So you're going to ride out Ramey Creek, and now we'll sort of up it a little bit. So not only do you have that little terrifying corner getting up, the last corner you go around to get up to the lookout, which I don't actually think's that hard, but a lot, if you are worried about heights, you'll get a dose of that there. But riding out Ramey Creek now, that's for real. Again, I don't know how much maintenance has been done on that trail, but the last time I did Ramey Creek, I said, holy cow, cowboy up. There's some stuff in Ramey Creek that'll actually keep you on your toes. There's been a bunch of blowouts down there where the snow melts and it rots off these little side hills, and some of the section, even where the trail's good, sometimes it's pretty technical, but in some of the blowouts, some of the ride-arounds were quite intense. So we'll get you out Ramey Creek, and that'll bring it up to true challenge section standards, I think. I would not recommend that you do that one. Everything else is the same. Everybody else is going to go out 5 Mile Creek. Got to be a little careful in 5 Mile Creek because it's a very easy trail except for one nasty section. And this one nasty section's got these big washouts on it. So you're on this trail that you'd take any kid on a 50. Then all of a sudden you get to this one section, you're going, where's the trail go? Well, it goes right across that side hill. It's all washed out. And the reason it's washed out is it's this decomposed granite that every year the snow just wipes the whole trail down to the creek. Probably you don't want to try to ride across that. Probably you want to get out there and push across that. There have been several teams, and we see it every year. You're watching them follow their PLB, and boom, next thing you know, it's down in that creek. It's 100 feet off the trail. I've done it myself. So it's one of these good places where, can you ride across it? Probably, but is it worth the risk that you're going to take? I don't think so. By the way, crossing that creek down near Bowery's the same way. Can you ride across that creek? I think probably most of the time you can. But even Jimmy Lewis dumped his bike in that creek. And if you do it, then all of a sudden your day gets a lot longer. There's certain things where the risk to reward ratio is completely upside down. There's nobody looking. There's not like a drone hovering overhead spying on you. If you want to get off and push your bike through a creek, push your bike through the creek. Push your bike across that washed out side hill. It's way better than blowing it and then spending hours trying to make up for a mistake in that spot. So you go out 5 miles. It's a little bit tricky, one side hill. There's a couple of tree roots you got to get up over that are a little tricky too, but nothing really bad. You pop out, you hit that Custer motorway, bop up the road a little bit, and then I think 3-person teams go up 11 Mile Creek, and then you drop over into the top of Squaw Creek, and it's the climb up to that divide is kind of steep. The last 3 or 4 switchbacks are really steep. Riding a loaded tour bike up it is a little difficult, but the reason we say 3-person teams is because you got 3 people you should be able to manage. But it's especially when it's dry in the summer, that hill climb is freaking steep. Everybody else goes around, comes in the top of Squaw Creek. There's a bonus section right up near the top of Squaw Creek. It's only worth a half a point. It's an out and back. I tell everybody every year, if you get there before 3, you want a half a point, go out there and poach it. If not, just keep on going. By the way, there are a lot of half a point bonus sections this year. If it's a half a point, it's because I think it'll take you less than an hour to do it, and it's dead simple. So you can patch together enough of those to get yourself a few points if you want to. You come back down Squaw Creek, and then there's a couple of different ways that you go depending on your team size, but everybody meets back up. There's a quad trail on Treeler Creek, and all the routes kind of converge in that general area. The soloists go up this really nasty quad trail that takes you right up to the lake. The 2- and 3-person teams take this big loop down to the south, and what is the name of that doggone basin? Let me see here. Let me pull up that map. Here we go. The 2 and 3 person teams. So the soloists go up to Bay Horse Lake, and the name of that trail, I don't have the trail number up here, but it might be the Treeler Creek ATV Trail. But the 2 and 3 person teams go south through Spring Basin, around to the top of what is that? I forget what the name of that creek is, but Spring Basin and then Juliet Basin. It's all in the write-up. That's actually a nice trail. It's all Jeep Road and quad trail, but it's ridge top. It's really pretty. I think you'll like it. It's a good trail. There is a bonus section back in there that goes up, what is that, Juliet Creek. I've never been able to get through that. I put it on there because it's a marked trail. I've talked to people that claim they've ridden it before. I've never been able to get through it. That trail never looks like it's sawed to me. But you're welcome to check it out. It's easy enough to ride down and check out, and you won't get very far, I don't think, before you figure out that probably there's nothing there for you. It's the one that goes down Broken Ridge Creek off of the main route. All of that will take you up to Bay Horse Lake, and from there you head up to Ramshorn Peak, and that last 30 miles into Chalice is just splendid. It's all these ridge tops. You're up around 9,000 feet the whole way. You eventually come across, drop down into a little bit of a gully, climb out of that, Keystone Gulch. Then you climb up and you hit the Lombard Trail. The Lombard Trail is it's pretty awesome. I mean, it's a UTV trail, but they run a foot race up there every year. And so the people that organize this race go up and they buff that thing right out, man. They pick up all the rocks and sticks out of the trail. It's got bank turns on it. Usually you're getting there, sometime in the evening, either early or late evening, and you come down to Chalice and you can see the lights, and this trail is nice and flowy and smooth, and it's one of my favorite parts of the Tour of Idaho. I love that last 30 miles into Chalice every time I ride it. I think it's great. Now, most teams last year surprised me, and a lot of teams didn't get into Chalice till pretty late. I think 7 p.m. was kind of the average time. And that's okay. You can still get a meal. You're still in time for your hotel room. But one thing that's different this year is last year, the next day was a pretty easy day. This year, that's not true. So getting into Chalice is a long day, and getting from Chalice to Salmon is an equally long day, at least equally long. Let me pull up that map here. All right, so here we go. About half of this day is Mystery Day, and I can't tell you very much about it, but let's go through the parts that we can talk about. All right, here we go. So, first part of the day hasn't changed. In fact, the day has two halves. The first half is basically what you did last year out to about Iron Lake, and the second half is all Mystery Day. So I haven't changed much of this in years and years, so most of you are probably pretty familiar with what you do. You're going to get up early in the morning, and you're going to wake up the lookouts on top of Twin Peaks. You ride up to this 10,000-foot place called Twin Peaks, and it's pretty cool. It's a lookout. It's just a Jeep road that goes up there, but it's one of the more adventurous Jeep roads on the planet. Years ago, there was a guy on Adventure Rider that tried to do the tour a bunch of times, some guy from New York, and he posted this video of riding up to Twin Peaks Lookout. He was really upset with me because, I described it as a Jeep road, and he described it as living on the edge of death. And it's because this guy always carried like steaks and a grill and stuff like that. He really didn't understand what the Tour of Idaho was all about. But there's a really nice video of him riding up there with his girlfriend, and his girlfriend, at one point, they stop, and the girl is very upset. And I guess I'm a bad person, but I found that highly entertaining. But you're going to be up there. You're not going to notice any of the big drops because it's going to be dark. Most people get up there, and they wake up the lookout who's expecting you that time of year. So you ride back down. Then you do Pat Creek, Eddy Creek, a couple of really, really cool trails. The only thing I will caution you on in the Pat Creek, Eddy Creek area is right around waypoint 70 XYZ 13. It's very easy to get lost there. If you look at that in the map, the trail changes directions really fast, and you're riding down a pretty big trail. You climb up this big hill, and the trail's kind of wide, and it's nice, and you're on the gas because you're going up the hill. And that trail just keeps on going. It goes way out into a wilderness area, and finally it just sort of stops in a meadow. But you'll end up riding quite a distance if you're not waiting for that waypoint to come up. 70 XYZ 13, the trail you're supposed to be on, the legal trail, is back over your right shoulder. It's about a 300-degree turn to get on the proper trail, and it's real easy not to see that thing when you're on the gas rolling by. So just be aware of that. There's a little side hill up there. Then you ride some really cool stuff down to the West Fork of Morgan Creek. There's one of my favorite trails in the world goes up to West Fork Lakes up in that area. It's real easy to get lost up there, by the way. Near 70 XYZ 13, the proper trail goes up to the right. The more well-traveled trail goes out to those lakes because a lot of people that ride that trail are just going out to those lakes to fish. The trail you want is the less developed looking of the two trails at an obvious fork. It goes to the right and uphill. You wind your way around some headlands up there, and there's a bunch of challenge points in that area. And eventually you end up in the Woods Peak, Van Horn Peak area, and there is a place, 70 XYZ VHLO. Waypoint is oddly named because you want to make sure you stop there. First of all, it's a challenge point. You need a photo. Second of all, some of the best riders I know have nearly ridden off a cliff there. The trail looks like it goes down through these rocks, and if you ride down very far, you're not getting back up because you'll eventually ride off a cliff. The trail used to go in a different direction. It kind of went down through those rocks before it went off to the east or the west side of that ridge. But now it goes back over your shoulder. It's one of these kind of things where it's about 300 degrees, except this time it's back over your left shoulder. I see Jeff laughing because he knows what I'm talking about. Everybody that gets there passes this trail and they start to ride down those rocks, and at some point self-preservation kicks in, a powerful instinct in most of us, and they go, what the hell? And they get off their bike and they look around, then they maybe start to notice I've ridden well past the waypoint that I put almost right where that turn is, and you see it immediately when you walk back up the hill or ride back up the hill. You go, there it is. I ride that trail every summer because it's one of my favorite trails. Last summer I missed it. Even knowing where it is, having the waypoint in my GPS, I still rode past the trail and I started riding down those slabs a little bit. That's how easy it is to do, even if you know where it's supposed to be. Jim Spooner, Truth. See, here's another guy that gets it. So when you come up on that waypoint, just stop. There's a really cool view there. Stop, get off your bike, spin around, and you'll see that other trail. And then you won't make the mistake that a lot of us have made. Nick Wood, I took notes not to miss it. I missed it. Dude, you and I are in the same boat. Dude, I've been there dozens of times, and I still missed it last summer. It was incredible. I hadn't been there in a couple of years. That was enough time for me to miss it when I rode it last summer. Then you're going to go down. You're going to go past Jim Spooner's favorite side hill. There's a place down there that used to be in dense trees, and nobody ever thought anything about it, but there was a big fire that burned through there 3 or 4 years ago. Now, all of a sudden, you can actually see the side hill because all the trees have been burned off, and the trail's kind of dusty and powdery when it's dry. And I got a text message from Jim last year that he was having an adventure there. He had deployed his rescue kit, is what I heard. And the side hill that followed, nice hour of my day, laugh out loud. Yeah, I've been there before, man. I know what you're talking about. But after that, you go down, and when you start turning downhill, you get back from Lemhi into Custer County. There's a challenge point. There's a couple of really cool views. You come down, you hit a Jeep road. It takes you back down into Morgan Creek. You head back down to the south a little bit down Morgan Creek Road. Then that takes you up into the Corral Creek area. There's a variation for 3-person teams, and there's a variation for soloists and 2-person teams. They're both good trails. You'll like either of them. The one for 3-person teams is a little rockier, a little bit more difficult, I think. That gets you up into the Hat Creek Lakes area. Hat Creek Lakes is one of my favorite areas of the tour. It's just spectacular up there. It's one of the reasons I like riding motorcycles in the middle of nowhere. There is mostly the trail is really mellow too. You can take all kinds of people back there because it's pretty and it's not that hard to get to, but there's just like this one little nasty climb, and it's right after waypoint 30. To get from 30 up to that pass at 31, there's like 15 feet of trail that there's a little hill there, and people started just gassing it going up this hill into this rock chute, and it's now like the rock chute is now 4 feet deep. And it's very, very difficult to ride on a loaded bike. It's not a problem if you're up there, as I usually am, on your unloaded 350 with just a saw. But if you're on a fully loaded tour bike, and, this is now day 7, there's about 100 feet of trail there that may give you a little bit of heartbreak, and there's no way around it. I mean, there's a bunch of rocks and stuff there, and there's kind of one way to go, and you got to figure out how to get through there. Above that, you get up, there's some side hill, you get up into this pass. Spectacular pass up to the east of Taylor Peak. Then you ride down the scree field. And this year we're doing something a little bit different. It used to be that you rode down through that scree field, then rode about 3 miles up to Iron Lake. Iron Lake this year is a bonus section. There's a waypoint up there, and if you ride up to where that waypoint is, you get a bonus. It's a half-point bonus. But everybody else, the regular route is going to go down the North Fork Hat Creek Trail, which I think might be 6092. I don't have the trail number right in front of me. But you're going to go down this trail. It's a short trail, takes you down it, and quads have been pushing up it from the low end, and so a lot of it's not really single track anymore. I don't know if IDPR went in and fixed that, but the last time I was on it, the quads had gone a long way up that trail. Dumps you out onto a road, and eventually you end up down on PLT Road, and you come down right around, what's that waypoint? 34 on PLT Road. There's a second bonus section of the day, and it goes up to Sheephorn Mountain. Now, the Sheephorn Mountain bonus section used to take a long time because you started from 10 miles away to get there. This year, that's one I would do, I think, because the riding is dead simple. And from where it takes off of PLT Hat Creek Road, take you 10 minutes to get up there, 10 minutes to get back. You'll want to take some photos up there because that lookout is kind of cool. This year, that is a bonus section I would seriously consider doing, even though the day is long. That's one that makes sense to do. After that, you're going to go south around Iron Mountain. You're going to head down to Hat Creek Road, and last year, some of this was on the challenge section for that day, which I think was 5 last year. And you're just going to head down Hat Creek Road to Highway 93. Cross a bridge, and you're on 93. And then after that, it's mystery route. So when you get to Chalice, I'll tell you what you're going to be doing the second part of that day. Once you roll down the river there to Highway 93, you are halfway. So if it took you 6 hours to get there, it's going to take you another 6 hours to get where you're going. And I suspect that's about what you're looking at. There's about the same amount of single track mile-wise in the second half as there is in the first. The first has more single track, but the single tracks in the mystery section are longer. There's several trails that are in excess or close to or in excess of 10 miles in length. Again, it's spectacular stuff. It's some of the best trail I have ever ridden anywhere. There are 2 bonus sections in the mystery portion of the tour. One of them is mandatory for 3-person teams. The other is a true bonus. I'd see what time of day it was when I got there, but they're all worth doing. The bonus sections are just wonderful. There's a challenge section also in the mystery section. And it's kind of funny, the reactions I get. The people that know this area, when I tell them I put this on, it's kind of split. Some people go, "You put that on there? Are you out of your mind?" And other people go, "Well, that doesn't appear to rise to challenge section standards to me." And I can tell you right away who's ridden it which way by the way they respond to that. Because if you ride down it, it's bouncy, but it's not too bad. If you ride up it, it's a completely different proposition. Now, this thing is not incredibly technical. It's not challenge section standard because it's an incredibly technical trail. It's got no side hill or anything on it. There's nothing there that's going to scare you. But it'll beat you up. It's like 10 miles of rock steps and when the rock steps stop, you'll get tired of the rock steps after the first few miles, and they just keep coming. You're going to ride rock step after rock step after rock step. It'll really test your suspension and your ability to loft your front wheel. Then you get into this area where it's not rock steps anymore. It's basketball-sized boulders for several miles. And doing it on a tour bike, in the direction that we send you up it to make it worth a challenge point, I think is a considerable undertaking. Now, you can get to the top of this trail in a different way, and it's part of the regular route to come into the top of this trail, and you'll see it when you finally do see the map. So I wouldn't, when you look at the map, you're going to assume that, well, it looks to me like this challenge section is a no-brainer because it's short. It gets you to the same place by a shorter distance that I'll get if I follow the regular route. And looking at the contours here, it doesn't look like there's anything on this that I would worry about. All I will tell you is that everybody that's ever ridden up this that I told I was putting on the tour said, "Oh my God, you're a sadist. It's pretty terrible." And these were good riders that I talked to. They all said the same thing: "You're out of your mind." So you might want to bear that in mind. Fully loaded bike, this thing could be a little bit of a test. Jeff, they're not going through Chalice twice. They're just going through Chalice once. That when you come back down to the highway there, 93, you are miles from Chalice. So it's not close. So this mystery section, there is a challenge section. There's several bonus sections out there. Again, you will get the info on this when you get to Chalice if you make it that far. But it's a fun day, but it's a long day. I have some riding to do in that area. There was more single track that I wanted to put on there, but I didn't get a chance to ride it before the snow hit last year. We went back there, and there was a lot of stuff that had not been sawed. And when it had been sawed in September and October, that's generally a sign that it doesn't get ridden that much. But we found some trails in that area that are just freaking killer. And if I get up there and I'm able to check that stuff out this year, next year there will be even more single track in the mystery portion of that day. I don't think you're going to get into salmon early this year. I think you'll probably get to salmon about 7 o'clock at night would be my guess. The stuff on the second part of this day, day 7 this year, is remote. Most of these trails are very seldom ridden after you leave 93 again. Your chances of encountering another rider are kind of low. There have been people that have people disappear in this area all the time, and they're just not found. It's a very, very remote area. So a lot of people that hunt in this area, don't come back, and nobody ever finds them again. So I don't want to sound overly dramatic, but I do want to give you an idea that when you get to this area, you're talking about something that's remote. So you need to have your poop stacked up. Make sure that you go in there with enough gas. There's no gas anywhere between Chalice and salmon, and no hope of getting any if you run out. So make sure you load up that day. If you're back there and your tubeless blows up, you're walking out, and you're walking a long way out. You may have to walk 30 or 40 miles before you find any place where someone can help you out. So this is a place where you're going into the middle of nowhere, and you need to be aware of that. I told everybody tonight I'd talk a little bit about nav. We talked about the tires, so just real briefly, because we're over the hour, I do want to talk a little bit about nav in these mystery sections. We're kind of going to do it a little bit different for all of them. In the special navigation challenge out in the desert, we talked about how we do that last week. But in these mystery sections, the way I'm going to do it is the night before or the morning of, you're going to get an email from me or a text message. We'll talk about how to do it. I think email's better. And I'll give you, in some cases, it'll be a map and some written directions. In other cases, it'll just be a set of trail numbers and some written directions. I generally throw in a few latitude and longitude. I don't send you waypoints. I would send you the waypoints, except a lot of people don't have an easy way to get those into their GPS units that they have on their bike. You kind of need a computer for that in most cases. So instead of doing that, what we'll do is you'll get maps. I'll send you a paper map, and I'll give you a bunch of trail numbers. And the people that navigated that way last year enjoyed it. In fact, what gave us this idea was there were so many fires along the route last summer, we were forced to adapt, and that was the way we did it. People were already out on the trail. There was no way I could get them the waypoints, in a way that they could load into their GPS units. So we just started, I would send them maps and I would send them trail directions, and people liked it. They just said, hey, this actually worked pretty good. And it was kind of cool, not really not knowing where you were going until you got there. And so we liked that enough last year. The riders liked it. I liked it. The tour community liked it enough that we decided just to make that more of a feature of the route this year instead of a bug. The last 6 or 7 years, I've made no bones about it. I wanted to make navigation more of an issue. Again, this is more than just a motorcycle ride. Anybody can ride a motorcycle on the tour trails. Kids ride most of these trails, so that's not the issue. I've never made any claim that these were the most technical, hardest trails in the world. They're not. In fact, I keep trails like that off unless they're challenge sections. I want there to be flow to this route. I want you to be able to ride. I want an average rider who's smart and is well prepared to have a pretty good chance of being able to get through this. So in climbing, a pretty good thing is a lot of routes on El Cap don't have any real hard pitches on them, but they have a ton of pitches that are kind of hard. And that's the way I've always thought of the Tour of Iowa. If you have a 514 pitch in the middle of it that nobody can do, not a lot of people are going to be able to do it. So we don't do that. We try to make these trails reasonable trails that I think you can ride on a loaded tour bike. And if I can do it, I'm pretty sure most of you can do it because I'm not that great. So, but we do want to make the navigation part of it. We want you to talk to people along the way, which is why we started having these supplemental challenge points. So all that goes into it. And Sean Smith, I love Day 9, which was that style last year. Sean and everybody did. Jim Spooner, who was the first guy through, roads were being closed while he was on them. He was like coming up on trail crews, that were putting up the signs. And big parts of the route were being closed in front of him. And Jim was so good at navigation and had done such a good job of basically thinking the thing through and thinking about navigation that I would tell him, okay, if you go 30 miles down this road, there's a trail. And it's about this far. It's on the right side. Go find it. By the time you get there, I'll have something else for you. He found his way all the way through that way. And he talked about how that was a feature rather than a bug. He really enjoyed the challenge of being able to do that. And then, frankly, another thing is that a lot of these trails are not well ridden, and that's something I've always struggled with. When I was a climber, I wrote 2 climbing guidebooks that paid my way through college. So it's a little hypocritical for a person like me to say, I want to keep the cool stuff to myself. And I'm kind of doing the same thing now, so I'm not going to try to stand on any moral prominence and declare that I'm out for the best interest of these trails. But there's some of these trails that are really remote, and the reason they're remote is because they're far enough away from Boise and Salt Lake and places like that those people just don't ever get up into this area, so they don't find this stuff. Most of these trails are ridden by guys from Pocatello, Idaho Falls, Bozeman, Missoula, people like that. Those are much, much smaller riding communities. Or Salmon Chalice guys. The people that actually live there, not the people from California that parachute in the summer and ride all that stuff. And those communities are a little bit different than the communities that are in big cities and from out of states. These are people that really care deeply about the area. You see these guys, you never see these guys out without a saw. And you don't see them out riding, when there's a bunch of snow. They wait until the snow clears off. They'll ride up and saw to the snow line or stuff, but they live in the areas where these trails are. They respect them. They understand that, a trail is actually a fairly fragile thing. It's fragile in terms of politics, but it's also fragile in terms of geology and geography. And they really respect that stuff and take care of it. And you know what? I think I'm going to go along with their ethic, and I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. So if you get there, I'll tell you where to go. If you don't, try again next year. And if you get there, I'll tell you where to go. That's just the way we're going to leave it. And when I'm done with the tour after next year, I'm not going to publish these trails in any of the maps. I'll just leave them off. That way other people could discover them for the first time, just like I and many other people did. I've said this here many times before. First time down a trail is always the best. You can never repeat the first time you rode down a cool trail. when your eyes are this big. Jeff Jensen was with me a couple of times last year, and we got off our bikes and looked around and said, holy cow, this is awesome. And I just want other people to be able to experience that for themselves. And when you don't know where you're going, you don't know what's around that corner, you don't know exactly how long the trail is, you don't know how hard it is, you get to experience all that stuff yourself. And to me, that's what makes riding cool. I'm not that interested in riding trails I've ridden before. I'm kind of notorious for that. I mean, I ride stuff around here because it's close and I have to do that. But like, I've ridden all the stuff in Chalice and I'm not that interested in riding up there anymore because I've ridden all that stuff. There's probably 4,000 miles of trails in Idaho. I figure I got maybe another 10 years left where I can actually ride that stuff. I want to ride stuff I haven't ridden before when I go out. So there you go. It is now 9 past the hour, and once again, you have wasted a perfectly good hour of your life that you cannot get back with a total knucklehead. I don't know why you all do it, but I love you for doing it. I will go in the next couple of days and try to clean up. Several of you have written to me about little things in the files and in the write-ups and stuff like that. I'll try to clean all that stuff up. Thanks for doing it. Most of it I've already cleaned up, but I haven't uploaded. All the files and stuff seem to work all the way up to where I said they did. They'll get you to salmon. Before next week, I'll have you at least all the way to probably St. Regis or Superior. I'm going to try to get all that stuff done by next week. I'm going to be working with Andrew and Jim to get all the stuff from that area in Montana up to Wallace. And then we're not going to change anything on the last day, so that'll be super simple. But hopefully by June 1st, we'll have all this stuff all wrapped up. It'll all be out there. The stuff that you're going to know about in advance, you're going to know about. And next week, we have a very special guest, somebody you absolutely want to be here for. It'll be a ton of fun, and I'm really looking forward to it. If you have any questions, I've just talked for an hour and 10 minutes nonstop, but if you have any questions, I can answer some right now, and if I don't hear anybody, I'm going to go put my kids to bed. And once again, thanks, everybody. It is the honor of my life that you knuckleheads show up here to listen to an idiot like me once a week. But I know it's because you think this is cool, you dig what we do, and it makes it worth doing every year. All right. Hearing no questions, let's see. J.R. Robinson, does Smoky Bar store sell gas? They do not sell gas because you have to have a license and permits and stuff to sell gas. However, if you read the write-up, there is a way at Smoky Bar store that a deal may be worked out. And I suggest that you talk to Kaylin, who might sell you a gas can that comes with some gas. So there are some things. You might be able to rent some gas there. But we don't like to talk about that too much because we don't want to get a friend of ours into trouble. So read the write-up, and there's a way I think that'll work there. Even if you can't get gas there, it's not very far from Ketchum to there, and then the next day you go up to Smiley Creek and get gas if you want. But I think there's a way that you can do it. Let's see. All right. Thank you, Sean. Jim, I'll be talking to you and Andrew soon. Sean, good to see you again. We don't talk about gas at Smoky. You guys are awesome. All right, I got to get out of here. I got one more week of football for kids, and then my time frees up a little bit. We are 1-4, but my kids are awesome. They're pretty cool, and I'm happy about that. I'll see y'all next week with my guests. Cheers.